Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here, coming at you with another edition of the Cons Cast. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about Anthem. More specifically, we're going to be going more in-depth into each individual Javelin now that I've actually gotten to play all of them. So in the previous video that I did talking about Javelins, I mostly gave you what I thought about each of these Javelins from the gameplay that I had seen from developer live streams and stuff like that. And I'm actually happy to say that most of the stuff that I said in that video is actually pretty right. The Javelins feel exactly like I described them now that I've actually gotten to play them. But let's get into this a little bit more. So it was late Sunday night for me. It was probably earlier for some of you guys. And the developers were like, oh, by the way, guys, we're unlocking all of the Javelins for the last couple of hours in the VIP demo if you guys have been able to access it, which the whole thing about being able to access the demo is a whole nother topic onto itself. And as a matter of fact, I might even do a video specifically dedicated to that because I have a couple of concerns with the fact that the demo still had the infinite loading screen on Sunday night. We still had the disconnection problems, all of that stuff. And I really hope they fix it by Friday, because otherwise we're going to have another shit show of a demo. And I really don't want to see that, because that is definitely not what Anthem needs right now. So once they unlocked all of the Javelins, I was already home, so I wasn't actually able to capture footage of Storm and Interceptor. So the only footage that I have of myself playing is Colossus and Ranger. However, I did get to spend a couple of hours with those other two Javelins, and I gotta tell you guys, when it comes to combat, my definite favorite is going to be the Colossus. But I mean, that's not gonna be new for anyone that actually knows me, because you guys know I love the concept of shield slamming and having just an actual physical shield that you can put yourself behind and that you can even shield your team. And the fact that the Colossus can taunt just gives it so much utility in a party setting. But not just that, the sheer amount of AoE damage that the Colossus can dish out makes him just be just right up my alley, right? So Colossus is hands down my favorite Javelin, and the playstyle that you get with the Colossus is that of a tank that's got artillery. It's an artillery tank. He actually throws out mortars, he's got flamethrowers, he's got acid throwers, he's got a bunch of different abilities that you can get that are really good for team play. I specifically love the taunt ability, because whenever you taunt, basically all of the other Javelins can just go hog wild. And the cool thing about the taunt that you get on the Colossus is that it actually puts a marker on enemies so that everyone in your team knows when you've actually taunted an enemy, so they know that it is safe for them to instantly go right up to their face and unload every single ability they have, because the taunted enemies are going to be focusing on you. You can also use that taunt to reposition enemies to force them to come a certain way, and that is just a really cool thing. The control aspects of the Colossus and the fact that you can run up to enemies, and the melee of the Colossus is incredibly powerful. So the Colossus is your big brute beastly friggin' Javelin, right? So what is the downside to the Colossus? Well, the downside of the Colossus is that when it comes to mobility, he's not all that good. So the developers have specifically stated that, like, you know, all Javelins fly at the same speed, so that if you're exploring with your friends, everybody's going to be able to keep up. However, some Javelins overheat a little bit faster, or maybe that was just the feeling that I got, but I think that in order was the Colossus heated up the fastest, then it was the Ranger, then it was the Interceptor, and then it was Storm. Now, I could be wrong here, but that was just a feeling that I got from overall play. But maybe I picked up some gear that had, like, I don't know, cooldown reduction on certain things. I gotta be honest, I wasn't really stopping to look, because most of the time I just like, okay, equip this, let's go capture more footage. I was more focused about capturing footage than anything else. But the gameplay of the Colossus felt extremely satisfying, regardless of the abilities that I had equipped. It just felt really good, really solid. I remember that I said in one of my videos that I felt like the Colossus was really squishy, and that is actually a very important thing, which is the components that you get. There's different classes of components. So there's the universal components, and then there are specific components to each of the Javelins. And I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to equip components specific to your Javelin, because they're going to give you stats that are very specific to that Javelin that are going to very much increase your efficiency. So in the case of the Colossus, even a simple component like something that it did something for my grenades. I don't remember if it increased damage or increased ammo capacity or whatever, but it was like this grenade mod for grenade launchers for the Colossus, and I was like, okay, I guess I'll take this. I wasn't even using grenade launcher at the time, but I picked up a grenade launcher just for that, and that component gave me so much health that I immediately stopped feeling like the Colossus was as squishy as I had mentioned in my previous video. So that is something very important. If you're ever playing a Javelin like in the demo that we're going to be having, if you're playing a Javelin and you feel like you're squishy or you're not dealing enough damage, make sure to check your components and see if you have specific components to your Javelin. Even if you're wearing like a rare universal component and you have like a common component for your Javelin, try that out. Like, Kegrin was also playing an Interceptor, and when he started equipping components that were specific for the Interceptor, he said, dude, my damage is just like off the walls now. It's completely insane. It is awesome. So anyway, the Colossus is definitely my favorite to engage combat in. However, not everything in Anthem is about combat. There's a lot to be said about traversing the world with their unique flight mechanic and just exploring this beautiful world, right? And the thing is, the Colossus might be my least favorite Javelin whenever it comes to exploration, because predictably, the Colossus handles in the air kind of like you just strap thrusters onto a giant rock and you just hurl it into the air. And that, don't get me wrong, I'm not criticizing it. That is a good thing. That is how the Colossus should feel, because, you know, all of that firepower and all of that tankiness needs to have some kind of a drawback to it. And the Colossus is definitely not the most mobile of Javelins. As a matter of fact, it is the least mobile of Javelins. Doesn't even have a dodge button at all. It's basically, you can't dodge stuff. You put up your shield and you pray to God it holds. That's the way the Colossus works. So now we come to my second favorite Javelin, which is the Ranger. Now when it comes to flying, the Ranger feels pretty damn good. You can actually do air dodges, which makes for a really enjoyable flying experience. He feels a lot more mobile. Again, they all fly at the same speed, but he feels a lot more mobile than the Colossus, making him a lot easier to reposition in the battlefield. So at any moment, you can just basically take off into the air and then just air dodge to the side if someone's got a lock onto you, and then land somewhere else and reposition yourself to constantly attack the enemies. It's not as easy to reposition as a Colossus, and you're going to be taking a lot of fire, specifically because you don't have an air dodge, okay? And the cool thing about the Ranger, in my opinion, is that it is the Javelin that feels a little more based in reality. I mean, as far as flying mech suits can be based in reality, I guess, but because it feels more realistic with his dodges, whereas the Storm teleports and the Interceptor almost does like an air ballet whenever you dodge in the air. Not saying it in a negative way, just saying it like for a personal taste type of situation. I really like the way the Ranger moves. I like the way the Ranger dodges, and I actually like the Ranger abilities quite a bit as well. You have a wide array of grenades that can achieve a wide array of different effects. I also like the launchers that you have with the Ranger. You can get missile launchers with it, which is really cool. And at the same time, it distinguishes itself from the Colossus because it doesn't have nearly as much AoE potential, be that in the form of weapons or in the form of the abilities themselves. As a matter of fact, the only AoE abilities that you get with the Ranger, as far as I can remember, is actually the grenades as well as your ultimate. I think that almost everything on the launcher is single target, but I'm not 100% sure on that, because, you know, you'd figure, oh, a rocket, right? Rocket explodes, AoE damage. No, the rockets, from what I could tell, were actually single target damage, or if it's AoE, it's so short that it feels like it's focused on that one character. And that emphasizes one of the strengths of the Ranger, which is focusing on that single target DPS, because essentially whenever you detonate something with a Ranger, it is going to deal additional damage to the target that was detonated. So if you're in a big boss fight and you're just fighting this one boss and nothing else, you always want to see if you can get your Ranger to be the one to detonate the combos, because he's going to be the one to get the most benefit out of it. The Ranger also features a wide array of abilities that let you excel at different things. And all of the ones that I tried out were pretty fun. And it's just right now, I have this really big conflict within me that I don't know which Javelin I want to unlock. First, the guy's like, well, I mean, you said you like the Colossus. Like, yes, I like the Colossus more for combat, but I feel that a big portion of the early game is going to be more about exploration, doing quests, being fast about doing stuff. And these are all three things that I don't see myself doing in a Colossus. Just like, like doing exploration on the Colossus, sure, you can do it, but it's much more fun if you have a Javelin that's a little bit more nimble. Getting in and out of places fast, that's also going to be much more fun if your Javelin's a little bit more nimble. So that's one of the things that I'm considering unlocking the Ranger first, and then unlocking Colossus second, and then playing the Colossus whenever I go do strongholds and stuff like that, and gear the Colossus up that way, and do most of the overworld content on the Ranger, which that is something really weird for me, because usually whenever I come to a game that has any kind of RPG-like mechanics that's got, the equivalent of classes, I can usually point to one class and be like, that's the one that I want. Like, go to World of Warcraft, I want the Warrior. Go to Destiny, I want the Titan. Go to Warframe, I want the Rhino. I can go anywhere, like go to friggin' Diablo 3, I want the Barbarian. I can instantly tell this is the class that Diablo 3 after the expansion was actually the Crusader? I forget. You guys know, the one with the big shield. Anyway, I can instantly look at a class and be like, this is the one that I want. And in Anthem, it's weird, because I want the Colossus, but I also want the Ranger. So let's talk about the other two that I'm not as interested in, and bear in mind that says nothing about the quality of Javelins themselves. I believe that currently the most popular Javelin, going by Mike Gamble's last poll that he done, was the Storm. And the Storm is in third place for me, and I think that the Storm is an incredibly fun Javelin. As a matter of fact, after having played the Storm, I can tell you right now, if I had one choice of one Javelin that I could have partied up with me at all times, from all three Javelins, if I could have one choice, I would always pick the Storm. Because I personally don't want to play the Storm, because it's not really my play style, but the benefits of having a Storm in your party, dude, forget about it. It is just so good. So the Storm is really good at priming targets. It doesn't have the acid abilities yet. That might be something that they add, in future updates after the game launches or whatever. But I don't think that Storm is going to have acid at all on launch. I could be wrong. I don't know. Either way. Right now, it doesn't have any acid abilities. But the amount of spells that it has available to it that can prime targets, and how easy you can prime targets using a Storm, it just feels so good. Like whenever I had a Storm in my party, and I would taunt something, Storm would go in, just like freeze it, then I would mortar shell it or whatever. It always felt good, especially when it came to turrets, because everybody be like, oh my god, there's a turret's dealing tons of damage in hard mode, all this stuff. Storm goes in there, boop, freezes the turret, no problem. Someone goes in there, boom, shatter combo on the turret. Lovely. It is friggin' awesome. And the ultimate, not just the ultimate, but like the detonation abilities of Storm, dude, it is insane. Like, you prime one target, you detonate it, it primes all the other targets around it, you detonate those, it primes anything else that has come. You can constantly just like spam prime shit. It is so good. It feels super solid. And the playstyle on it, like, it feels very different, because say for instance with a Colossus, you're very much, okay, your playstyle is, I'm here, the enemies are there, let's go straight in, deal as much damage as possible. The Ranger, you're going to want to try to flank, because you have much more mobility. You can flank all over the place. You can support your allies with buffs and stuff like that. The Storm, basically, its playstyle is to actually hover mid-air, because when you hover, your shield is actually much more effective than when you're on the ground. So while you're in the air hovering, you also get like almost an overview of the battlefield, because you're hovering, you're basically above the enemies. And that is exactly the position that you want your Storm to be in, because that is how you can better prepare to cast your spells and do all of the AoE shit that Storm can do. And again, it just feels like a very different playstyle. Whereas with the Ranger, you're constantly moving, repositioning, flanking, doing all these things. With the Colossus, you're kind of tanking, frontal assault style. And with the Storm, you're kind of overseeing the battlefield from as far away as you possibly can. I believe the Storm is actually going to excel at using sniper rifles and the like. But you're going to try to stay as far away from the action as you can to basically cast spells whenever they need to be cast, and that just feels really, really solid. And again, it really distinguishes the playstyle, okay? So Storm, I love it. It feels a lot of fun. Like, I did The ultimate on Storm is particularly satisfying to do because you're basically priming and detonating 3 times in a row with 3 elements, with lightning, frost, and fire, and it's insane. Like, once you actually get to do that stuff, you're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. So Storm, 3rd place for me, but it is definitely, like I said, if I could pick one Javelin to always have with me on a party, it would be the Storm. So now let's get to the very last one, which is the Interceptor. And I understand the Interceptor is going to be much higher on a lot of people's lists. That's the whole point when it comes to these Javelins, though. They're going to appeal to different aspects of different people. But the main reason why the Interceptor is so low for me is because, at least in the demo, I felt like he wasn't properly balanced. The Interceptor Javelin, it felt like the most efficient way of playing the Interceptor was basically to go up to enemies and spam your melee. Now, the special thing about the Interceptor that I was not aware of until I actually got to play it is that the Interceptor melee does not have a cooldown. Every other melee and every other Javelin has a cooldown. It's a very short cooldown, but it basically prevents you from just like spamming melee all the time. It's just there so that you can do melee, and then like, okay, now you do something else, and then you can do another melee hit. And even then, I still feel like the cooldown on the other ones is still very much on the short side, but that is intended to be like that, at least from what I can tell. But the Interceptor has no cooldown, so basically you go up to an enemy and you just spam melee. Now, it also means that he doesn't deal as much melee damage per hit as everybody else, but while you do, I don't know, 2 hits on a regular Javelin, with the Interceptor you'll do, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, maybe even 10, depending on how fast you can spam that button. And it does feel like an interesting playstyle. It is pretty cool. It distinguishes itself that way because, you know, whereas you have all of these 3 playstyles that I talked about, the frontal assault, the flanking, the overseer from the back, the Interceptor is the guy that just dashes right into the middle of the action, slashes the crap out of your enemies, and then dashes out as fast as you can. So the Interceptor is also going to require a lot of skill to play. I mean, I think in the final version, not right now. Right now in the demo, you just felt like you just go in, spam melee attack, keep getting health from the enemies that you are killing, and keep going that way. You can't do that for every enemy though, because, you know, certain enemies deal a lot more damage. Like, you're not going to go against the Tyrannid boss, the Tyrant spider looking thing. You're not going to go against that and melee it to death because it's not going to work for you. You can do it if you have your ultimate. You can go in there and just slash away, but you're not even going to be hitting the weak spots. Also, I kind of feel like the Interceptor was probably the last Javelin that they worked on, because one of the abilities that I had, and unluckily enough, I actually got most of the ability drops that I got were of that ability, so I had to use it a whole bunch. It was the Spark Dash. I felt like that wasn't even working properly because it's supposed to dash you towards a target, and a lot of times it would just dash me in random directions. It felt weird. Like, when you actually were able to aim that thing and hit with it, it dealt a lot of damage, but it felt incredibly awkward to use. So I think that particular skill might be glitched or whatever. But ultimately, I think that the Interceptor is going to be very appealing for people that like rogue play, like I said in my previous video. It's just, I hope that they diversify its playstyle a little bit more, because the melee felt way too strong for you to even use weapons. You basically use weapons while you're running from enemy to enemy to slash them up. But the thing is, the camera itself, because it doesn't have like a lock-on feature or anything, also made it incredibly hard for you to just like keep slashing at enemies, because you would continuously slash and it's like, oh, the enemy's behind me now, I have to reposition, turn the camera all the way around, go back from where I came with the melee hits. I don't know, there was something about it that I felt could have potentially been better. Like, maybe have some kind of a setting for automatic lock-on when you're spamming melee with the Interceptor. But you have to be able to turn that off, because I know that some people are like, oh, I don't want that, just don't fuck with my camera. But right now, it just feels weird. But, you know, tell me how you feel about it in the comment section. I'm just trying to get some feedback out there for how it felt for me to play it. But at the same time, playing it as the most agile of all Javelins was also pretty friggin' cool. Like, just how fast you can move around the battlefield, and the animations for jumping with the Javelin and all of that stuff. It still felt solid. Like, I'm not saying that playing the Interceptor felt bad. I'm just saying it felt like there wasn't as much diversity to the playstyles with the different abilities and whatnot as I had with the other Javelins. But again, the Interceptor is what I've played the least, so, you know, it is what it is. Either way, did you guys get to play the VIP demo? Which one did you guys play the most with? Because, you know, at the end they unlocked all of the Javelins. Which one did you like the most? Let me know in the comment section below. And like I said, I'm probably going to be doing a video which is going to be about a couple of concerns that I have in regards to Anthem from a couple of things that I've seen on the interwebs. So if you guys want to make sure not to miss out on that, subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, all that good stuff. If you enjoyed this video, hit it up with a like. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.